basically like Burrow and Lamar had a chance to improve their MVP case. They both got a chance. They both choked on it. Honestly, Burrow didn't win the game. They lose to the Texans, and Lamar blows a 14-point lead, has his worst statistical game of the year, and they lose to Cleveland. And it sets up, and I'm going to just keep kind of referencing this, I think what can be like one of the great MVP races, not because the players are good, because all the players are flawed. I think it actually sets up like one of the most interesting markets we've ever seen in that award. And part of that happening was Lamar came into this week as wasn't the betting favorite everywhere, but was like one of the betting favorites. You read all the midseason content, he got the most votes by far. Everybody said he was the MVP at the midseason point, and he goes out and he does that. And it's like, all right, well, Joe Burrow was kind of like the late bloomer, the guy who could come on late and maybe get a big record and win. They lose at home to Houston. Now they may miss the playoffs. And the third part of that comment from Sunday, and you and I are on the opposite side of this game, but it has to be said that now Lamar puts up that game, Burrow puts up that game. There is a lot of oxygen here if Josh Allen goes out and has a monster game against the Denver Broncos tonight in the MVP conversation. I mean, he's like 20 in some places. First of all, with that performance, he's more likely to win than Burrow, by the way. Like already. Like he doesn't have to play tonight. He's more likely to win than Joe Burrow is. Like they're way behind the 8-ball record-wise. And so you just go, man, like that's the last guy who had a chance to kind of really catch up to these other players in terms of like team record and statistics. And are they going to go 0 for 3 like the kind of contenders against the teams with the bigger records? Because guess who comes back this week? All three of them. Dolphins a very likely win at home this week against the Raiders. They're a 10-point favorite. And then the two MVP favorites play each other on Monday night. Like that game could literally just be winner wins MVP because all these other guys just don't win. Like that's what happens. So yeah, just my thought about those two games. I think you did a good job just framing like how crazy the games were, but they were high leverage for like the most important award that the league hands out. And there are like 8 quarterbacks, honestly, kind of like tripping over each other and stumbling around trying to get this MVP. And nobody seems to be able to put together the flawless case to do it yet. Now, maybe somebody can do it out of their bye or whatever, or the winner of Monday night's game. But yeah, that was one of my thoughts off those games.
I have a question about MVP, and then we'll get to the games in a second. So you mentioned, it's a bunch of flawed candidates going for MVP, and just the 3 guys that'll come off bye coming up this week in Week 11. Tua Tagovailoa, like definitely a flawed candidate in that whenever they play a good team, they lose, and we'll see if that happens in the second half of the season. But that would be kind of like Tua's bugaboo, right? For Mahomes, who's the favorite, and like I think deservedly the favorite, like the stats aren't what they've been. Like he's not putting up the eye-popping. And the defense is great, right? Which kind of like takes a little bit away from, look, we can all acknowledge that Mahomes is the best player, while also acknowledging that like his statistical profile is not what it's been in past years. I guess the one thing that I would say would be, is Jalen Hurts a flawed candidate? Like, is he actually flawed? Like, is that or is he?
Well, that's part of it.
Oh, he was like maybe. I mean, they're also on bye, so like, and also like he's still performing really well, even with like
his stats aren't close to the top guys though. Like you throw in his rushing touchdowns, like the 1-yard pushes that they get a lot of the time, and the profile looks better. But like Tua is by far the leading passer in the league, right? Well, it's Tua and Stroud now that Stroud played that way yesterday. Like they're the leading passers in the league in terms of just like yards and touchdowns and everything. It's like Hurts. I would argue that just like Mahomes, they check the box of team quality, which you're always looking for. I mean, the number of wins the MVP winner has usually is a very high number. And they're the two most likely teams, Chiefs and Eagles playing Monday night. They're the two most likely teams to get that big record and to have that MVP winner. But statistically, both guys are not what they need to be kind of to like, not they can both win with those numbers. It's just to put away everybody and make it like an easy choice. They both, I think, have to play a lot better statistically. And obviously that'll start Monday. But like, let's all be honest. Like, would it surprise any of us if Joe Burrow won a football game? Of course not. Like, so any game that he starts, the Bengals are live to win. So this is not some done deal that the Bengals are in such a bad situational spot and they're injured and they're playing a really good team that they have to lose. So it's nothing like that. It's just, okay, like the Ravens are going to close like a big number home Cleveland yesterday. And this is where we get into like, what is Cincinnati really? Is it the Niners game? Is it the Bills game? And now we have questions about the Bills a little bit. Is it somewhere in between? Is it Houston, this like yesterday's game? Like, how do you take all of this and process it? And like, cause let's be honest. And like, I know you said this earlier, but like, I actually do kind of disagree. Like Houston had the game, had it 10-point lead with the ball fourth quarter. Stroud doesn't make a mind-numbingly terrible decision. Like, we don't even open with that game. It's just like, yeah, like Houston blew him out. That's crazy. Like, that's it. So just, I'm supposed to upgrade Cincinnati going into this game off that game. Like, I'm supposed to give them credit going to this building to play off that. Like, instead I have them rated better than Cleveland, but not by a lot. Like, I think those two teams actually end up quite similar when we get to the end of the year, when Deshaun Watson starting, that is, and not PJ Walker. So look, like, Burrow can win any game that he plays. Wouldn't begrudge anyone for betting Cincinnati money line as a dog ever. If he's the starting quarterback, it makes sense. Just this exact game, I think the number should be more than this with how Cincinnati comes into the game. So it's just a price thing for me. Cincinnati's a fun team. I like them. Just this number in this spot, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
What's your projected point spread in the game?
Like 5.5.
Ooh. And
but how?
Again,
but like, so you say ooh, but like, no. Let's say this for a second. So you say ooh, like, I don't understand how it can be different than that.
I'm not saying I disagree with your number.
Yeah.
Just that, like, it's less of like what's like the right number in the game, and more for me, like, what would I do at that number? And look, maybe I'm wrong here, and like maybe you're way right here, and Baltimore's like the right side, and that the price is right. And you could definitely be right about that. I think I'm going to end up being one of the suckers that's going to take the points from Cincinnati in this game. It's not a
sucker thing. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this isn't like I'll be perfectly honest. Like, Minnesota, like on yesterday. Like, if you bet New Orleans, there was not a case you were going to make that I was going to be like, you have a point. Like, there would be no case. Like, I would never have agreed. I would have been like, it's never New Orleans. I actually think people that bet New Orleans are less intelligent. And that's me. I'm arrogant, but like, I felt so strongly about that game, and I bet a lot of money on it, to be fair. Like, I really like Minnesota. This game isn't like that. Like, you can like Cincinnati and you might be right. Like, this is a guess. And it's really just driven by what is Cincinnati really, and what is this version of, like, the no Higgins, no Hendrickson, Chase is hurt version of Cincinnati. Like, not like San Francisco, everybody's playing and like, hey, we look really good off the bye, like all that stuff. Like, this is different. And I'm just not sure this team is like sort of deserving of this rating when they're in this kind of spot. My best guess is just the net injury is going to be worse Cincinnati, so the line is more likely to move toward Baltimore.
Yeah, maybe we see like a 4.5 as we approach 4.5 as we approach kickoff on Thursday night. Kind of feels like it does feel like, and like I think I'm going to take this side, and I hope I win. It does kind of feel like maybe like I'm like 11:30 on Thursday night. The Cincinnati Bengals, the square dog of Week 11. We'll see. I mean, a lot of people are going to like the Bengals at that.
They could get smashed. I mean, they really could. Like, it's crazy. Like, I was driving the Bengals like buyback bandwagon, like the plus money playoff prices. The win totals were 8.5. Yeah, the win total was 8.5 at some point. I think either after the Tennessee game or something. Like, buying low on them, I still think was a smart idea. Whether it works out or not, I think those bets are maybe going to get home. But like, it doesn't have to go awesome every week just because Joe Burrow's the quarterback. Like, I can't emphasize this enough. I'm going to say it for the third time, but then I promise I'm finally done. Like, Houston had him cooked in the game. Houston on the road had him done. And just like if Stroud doesn't throw the pick, like, what do we think of this game if Stroud doesn't throw that interception? They're going to get a ton of credit against the Ravens on the road on a short week. Now, I guess Hendrickson doesn't get hurt in this butterfly effect kind of a thing like you mentioned, but it's just so interesting. Like, the game ends up getting wacky and close, and Boyd drops the touchdown, and I almost feel like we forget that like 4 minutes before that, the game was over. Like, they convert that, it's done, and it's like, wow, like, what a statement, even more of a statement win that we say for Houston right now, because they just like put them away, like didn't even make the game competitive and dramatic at the end.
So Robert Saleh's addressing the media, telling reporters that he's sticking with Zach Wilson as a starting quarterback. And this isn't even like, great, what's he going to do, play like Tim Boyle or Trevor Siemian? I guess they could. I mean, these guys are bad too. Saleh adding about Zach Wilson, he's actually playing pretty well. Like, I'm just wondering, like, do you think Joe Douglas, the Jets GM, is like standing behind Saleh, like with a gun pointed at his back? Like, he's, right. I feel like he's like a hostage. Like, he's being held hostage, being like forced to say
he's
things
making progress. Say he's getting better.
Because let's call a spade here. This isn't splitting the atom. I don't think anyone's just going to disagree with me. Like, watch Robert Saleh, watch Zach Wilson play, and then you watch Zach Wilson play. Does anyone think he's playing well? I'm not trying to pile on the kid here. Like, maybe he's a nice guy. Like, he doesn't have it. Everyone knows it. Like, why don't they just bench him? Like the situation is weird. It's getting weirder too. Like you got to sit this kid down. And they're like sticking with him, and they're like lying to everyone's face. Yeah, he's actually. Oh yeah, the game that you watched last night when like he was brutal. Yeah, he's actually pretty good. What? He is? Okay. Good luck. Good luck with that, Deb. Good luck with that, Jets.
And this happens in the NBA. We talk about this in hockey all the time with the Canucks. So like the Canucks are kind of our hockey team this year that I have a ton of award bets on, ton of like season-long bets on, and they're all looking awesome. And then the Sixers are that with the NBA with me. And the Rangers for you with the hockey, I think, are kind of like under that umbrella too. Like a team that you think is awesome, that you think could do some stuff. And the crazy thing is in both sports, but especially with the Sixers, the market is still really resistant because, again, it hasn't been that many games. We've only played like 10% of the season. But every game, I just go, I think this is really a thing. They beat Boston already. I think at the end of the year, especially adding a piece, I think they're going to play Denver for the title. And I'll do you one better. I think they're going to play Denver for the title, and I don't know who's going to win. How do you like that one? There's a chance. Here is the most outrageous thing I'll say on the show today. Be like, well, what do you think the Sixers are this year? Like, give me a comparison. I think they are the like Twitter generation 2023 social media version of Shaq and Kobe. That's what I think they are.
Oh, okay. Love it.
I think Embiid is like the 2023 evolved NBA version of Shaq. There's no one like Shaq. There also could be nobody like Embiid. We'll see if he stays healthy. Maxey and Kobe, obviously, like there aren't a lot of. It's just like here's the Batman and Robin of like this time. Not that the players like games have a lot in common, obviously, and their dimensions are completely different, but just that's how I think about Embiid and Maxey. If that's true, then I think they might win some titles. We'll see.
That's pretty hot. That's pretty hot. I like it.